Good evening and welcome to the Cabinet meeting of Tuesday, the 27th of August. We'll start with the agenda. Apologies for absence. I think we've had apologies tonight from Councillor Marhill, Harinder, and Deputy Leader Theresa Murray. So moving on to the record of decisions. Are colleagues happy for me to sign the record of decisions of the 30th of July? Thank you very much. Item 3, declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other significant interests. Are there any? No one is interesting tonight. That is good. Let's move on then to the first substantive item of the agenda, the protest of the 7th of August 2024. Alex, over to you.
Thanks, Vince. I'd like to thank officers for producing this report at quite short notice on an issue that was very much of concern to residents, perhaps more in the anticipation of what might have come to pass than what actually did come to pass. And for that, I'm grateful to Kent Police for their exemplary work in gathering intelligence about the planned protest and in managing that situation so well. I think I'd also like to thank the law-abiding citizens of Medway for the way that they responded to what was quite a worrying situation. Clearly, there is a tiny minority who hate what Medway is. They hate how diverse and united a community we are, and their values are not our values, and that was demonstrated very clearly. And you know, I think that what we've shown in the weeks since, not just in the direct response to this through the Community Safety Partnership and with Kent Police, but as a community, we have demonstrated the best of Medway. We only have to look at a couple of weeks ago, the events around Medway Pride to show just how much we can celebrate our diversity, that we can have events which are inclusive and positive and seek to make things better rather than bluntly make things worse and sow hate and dissent. I'd rather those people didn't exist. If they do exist, I'd rather they keep their mouths shut. But the reality is also that we have to seize this opportunity now that they have broken cover and recognise that light is the best disinfectant for these abhorrent views, and that we can actually pull together and learn as a community how these incidents come to pass. I welcome the comments of the Prime Minister today in recognising how this sort of situation arose and the way that the criminal justice system has responded in dealing quite forcefully with those who were involved. At a local level, I'm keen that we should learn those lessons. I've been communicating with various community groups, with Kent Police since the incidents themselves, and we are looking to see what we can do to promote a more cohesive approach going forward. I think one thing I would just mention that doesn't necessarily fit within the nature of a council report on an issue like this was actually the negative impact on businesses around Medway as well. There were quite a number of businesses which I know closed early because of the perception that there was danger, and sometimes that was based on misinformation. I think that it raises questions about how we communicate more generally in a social media age where misinformation spreads and where a lie is halfway around the world before the truth has laced up its boots. That was certainly the case in terms of some of the information which was spread on that day. And I think that we are in a position to learn those lessons. The mechanisms are now in place to have those discussions, and I'm looking forward to making sure that these people are never given the opportunity to cause trouble in the way that they have for the people of Medway again.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex. Any other colleague? Nina, please.
Thank you once again as well to the officers for this report, and well said, Alex. Medway is the conurbation of the towns of Rochester, now I'm surrounded by friends. Thank you. So I'll start again. Thank you once again to the officers for this report. Medway is a conurbation of the towns of Rochester, Stroud, Chatham, Gillingham, Raynham, and the surrounding villages. But crucially, apart from our rich heritage and culture, it is the people living in Medway that makes this place so special. Because in our borough, we are full of kind and compassionate, talented and creative people who are inclusive and progressive and firmly believe that there is no place for discrimination, fear-mongering, and disharmony here. This is how our borough remains a firmly connected community of over 280,000 strong people. Our borough's resounding motto, let us remember, is forward together. And no one should underestimate how firmly this principle binds us all together. Our borough is diverse, but values every individual, their potential as well as their contributions. Our hearts swell with immense pride when it comes to our community cohesion, harmony, and understanding. We firmly believe that by working together, we are united and strong. And as has been pointed out, our police, the council staff, council leaders, partner organizations, community leaders, and faith groups all work tirelessly throughout the year to promote a safe, harmonious, peaceful, kind, and understanding borough. Actually, this was even more evident in the lead up to the challenges of August the 7th. And as we applaud this strong partnership work, it has nonetheless highlighted the need for us to remain vigilant and steadfast in our commitment to support one another, reach out to one another, and stand united against all forms of attempts at planting disharmony, disquiet, and harm, especially against our community's minority groups and those who are most vulnerable and innocent as well. Even one person being harmed in our borough is one too many. On behalf of local communities, as well as minority ethnic community groups, I'd like to thank Kent Police, the council, the leaders, faith and community groups, their leaders and partners for their swift action to address the potential disorder in such a timely manner and keep members of all communities safe.
Thank you very much indeed, Nina. Luella, please.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to the officers for the report, but also to the people who work together for all the partnerships to stop the disruption having the maximum effect. It brought it right down. And particularly to the first responders on the scenes the evening, because they deserve our thanks and respect because they brought any disruption to a minimum impact for the whole community. That was all, just to support what Nina's already said.
Thank you very much, Luella. Powerful words again. Thank you. Can't see any other colleagues. So before I come back to Alex, just a few points from myself. First and foremost, I'm all for free speech. That's absolutely fine. Free speech doesn't include looting Greggs and Lush, as we've seen elsewhere in the country. So let's be really, really clear. This administration, this community, all of our civic partners, no one is stopping freedom of speech. What we're saying loud and clear is thuggery, antisocial behaviour is not acceptable in Medway. And we sent a really powerful message on the evening of the 7th of August because our partners were informing the community. We as a council, and I want to pay tribute not only to Ruth and her team, but also to the comms team. We had good internal communications to staff. There were staff who were concerned. Understandably, 80% of staff for Medway Council live in Medway, so they were concerned because it's not only their place of work, but it's their home. And community members across the 285,000 people were worried. So it was right for us to put those messages out, both from the Chief Executive, from myself and from others at that time. There's always, even though I think this has been an outstanding response, there's always more to do, there's always more to learn. And we will do that. I think I pay tribute to the police leadership. Gary Cook in particular, I think, has done an outstanding job, and I'd place on record my thanks to him, not only for this incident but other situations we've had over the last couple of months in Medway. I want to recognise Carol Stewart as well. She brings a really powerful voice, along with people like Rupa Sen, making sure that all voices in the community are heard. And as the recommendations say here, that workshop on community cohesion, I think that's a really powerful message from this Cabinet to say we will use our powers, as the elected body to bring together those other key stakeholders in this. But we start from a good place. We start from a good place, and I'm proud of that. As some people know, a few years ago, I was involved in something which said that people love music but hate racism, and it's true. But we can't ever be complacent, as colleagues around the table have said. So if there are others watching on tonight thinking of not having their right to have their voice heard, that is different. But, committing antisocial behaviour, committing acts of far-right thuggery in Medway, you're not welcome here. You're not welcome here. And let's be very, very clear. The indication was that the vast majority of people there on August the 7th were not Medway residents. Let's be clear, from the travel routes we saw, that's pretty clear as well. So, look, I'm grateful for colleagues for their contributions from around the table. Thanks to all of our partners. And look, we're proud to be Medway. And that means we're proud of all of Medway. And we will continue to be. Alex, back to you.
Thanks, Vince. I think that's a really powerful message, and that positive action that we can take is critical. I just wanted to touch on how upsetting these events must have been for people from especially visible minority groups in Medway. I come from a Medway minority group, but if I keep my mouth shut, no one's particularly aware of it. Unfortunately, I'm not very good at keeping my mouth shut. But to make light of that, it's deeply worrying, and I think back more than 30 years to an event which I remember feeling similarly upset by, and that was in 1993, the election of a racist BNP councillor in Tower Hamlets. And I know how shocking that felt as an event across the United Kingdom. I know that living hundreds of miles away from where it had happened, its impact was huge, and I know that the next day I went to a stall in the city centre in Glasgow and joined the anti-Nazi League and wanted to feel that I was making some positive contribution in standing up to this sort of far-right thuggery. And I understand that people in Medway will want to not only show how much they abhor such behaviour, but to do something positive against it, to not just not be racist, but to be an anti-racist. And I would encourage people that there is a lot of work to do if you're prepared to put your shoulder to the wheel in Medway. There's a lot of positive work that we can do together, and please harness that anger that you feel, but turn that into something positive, and let's build our communities back up, but also be mindful of just how shocking this incident has been for people who are every bit as much part of Medway and have a right to be a Medway citizen as anyone around this table. So I thank colleagues for their support on this, and I look forward to reporting back on good progress going forward.
Thank you very much, Alex. So the recommendations agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Let's move on to the next agenda item, which sits with myself, and that's the medium-term financial outlook 24 to 29. Across the county, there's been a lot of talk today about local government finance. Let me just be very clear before I move into the more detail of the report, and I'm sure colleagues will have more to say as well. There's clearly an ongoing conversation about devolution. And our view on devolution has been well documented. We want additional powers, we want additional resources. We don't want an elected mayor of Kent and Medway, but certainly I recognise that the Council of Regions and Nations, something the new government has brought forward, leaves a question as to what does that actually mean. So I think through the relevant channels, we'll ask that question, we'll explore what that means, and we'll come to a conclusion. That is a separate debate from anything on local government reorganisation. And with due respect to my friend, the Deputy Leader of Kent County Council, who's got the responsibility for finance, the comments made earlier today seem to be bringing the two together. I'm really clear, there is no appetite in Medway whatsoever for local government reorganisation. We've done that. We were ahead of the field in the southeast, not just in Kent. So certainly there are no foreseeable plans. I hate that phrase because everyone goes, well, what does that mean? There's nothing on the agenda to say we are looking at local government reorganisation. We absolutely want to be part of the conversation around devolution. Say colleagues elsewhere have kind of merged the two together, and I think that's unhelpful because it gives very mixed messages to residents who, quite frankly, are getting on with their lives and don't really care that much, most don't, understandably, about the structures of local government as long as their bins get picked up and their kids can go to a good school and that their elderly relatives can be cared for appropriately. So I just want to say that in the context, because actually that's important to what we look at today. So we will have a conversation about devolution in due point. We've been given the timescales by the new government as to making some initial views on that, and we will do that in the timescales. This is about Medway Council's finances today and moving forward. And colleagues know through the difficult decisions we've already had to make and the difficult decisions we are continuing to have to make, that the financial situation is challenging, extremely challenging. The details of which, of course, people can see within the report, particularly in Table 1. That shows where we're looking at placing the limited resources we have available to us. There continues to be a lot of conversation, not only about this year's current financial year that we're in now. We've got difficulties that we're trying to resolve, as is the nature. It's not unusual for Medway, but those continue to be there. The pressures are real and genuine in all parts of the council, particularly, people will be unsurprised to hear me say, in those 4 areas which across local government, across England, continue to be a particular challenge. Adults, children's, special educational need and disability, and temporary accommodation. Those 4 are challenges for councils, and because we're a unitary authority, of course, we have all 4 of those challenges. And I know portfolio holders around the table, and the 2 that aren't here tonight as well, are getting on with trying to find solutions, innovations to, in the best case scenarios, improve the outcomes but reduce the cost burden. And I think we're seeing that, whether that's the investment we're seeing in housing, the progress we're making on the Care for Medway programme, just to name a couple. And there are others, and again, colleagues may wish to touch on some of those. So there are some challenges here, there's no doubt of that. We continue to go through the process of exceptional financial support. We've been talking to SITFA, we continue to do that on a regular basis. Those conversations have been open and transparent, as you'd expect us to be. That's always been our ethos since day one of this administration. And we will continue to do the things that we need to do to balance the books. As we've heard again, as Alex referred to the Prime Minister's speech earlier today, we know how he feels. We know how he feels, you know, inheriting, in our case, more than 2 decades worth of Tory mismanagement, and trying to deal with that in a way which is responsible, but taking the difficult decisions, because the alternative is shutting up shop and handing the keys back to central government. Nobody elected this administration to do that, whoever is in government centrally. So colleagues have got the information there. Obviously, there are 3 recommendations. Note where we are, obviously agree the resource envelopes, and that's the approach that we've taken both last year and we are this year, and the continuing work. And I know there's individual work, collective work, and we are taking that, and I'm very proud, actually, that we take that collaborative approach, whether that's on a directorate basis, as a team of 25. We've got the next team of 25 meeting in a couple of weeks' time. So that way we are, not working in silos. And we know that working in silos leads to poor decision making and absolutely not sustainable finances, as we know sadly only too well from what we inherited. I'll pause at that point. Very happy to take questions, comments, etc. I'll take Tracy first and then Simon.
Thank you very much. It's clear from this report how challenging the position is, and as Vince has mentioned, there are 4 particular areas: adult social care, children's social care, special educational needs and disabilities, and temporary accommodation. These are all statutory services that we have to provide for some of our most vulnerable residents in our communities, and it's really important that we continue to provide these services. However, we know how challenging this is. A report was released by SITFA just last month, which in particular was looking at managing the rise in demand in children and adult social services. The very opening paragraph of their summary states that upper tier councils are spending an ever larger proportion of their budgets on adult and children's social care, while costs and demand are increasing and spending power is decreasing. It's so important that we continue to provide these services, but the challenge cannot be underestimated. We have got to look at innovative ways of making sure that we're still able to provide these services. We know we've still got some really difficult decisions to make. We made some last year, and I think there is probably worse to come. We've been left with very little fat to trim because of the decisions that we had to make last year. And I think it's right that this report states that we need to be looking at maximising income rather than looking at making any lesser spend on these essential services. So I think it's going to be a difficult time ahead. People in Medway are still feeling austerity with rising rents, mortgages, fuel bills and costs, and it's really important that we try and do everything that we can to minimise our impact on our vulnerable people in Medway.
Thank you very much indeed, Tracy. Powerful words. Thank you. Simon, please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Vince, and thank you for the initial comments. Describing the challenge is the thing that we've got ahead of us, and understanding what that challenge is. And each of us, you mentioned about the silo working, and I love the way what we're trying to do here in Medway is work collaboratively across the board. We have regular meetings with all the senior team and the council officers present, and the work going in to make this happen is so important. And it also makes it clear to us members the cuts are going to have to happen, and that's got to come across the board. We cannot be isolationist about this and try and protect our own areas. And I think also it's about partnership in a wider scale, partnership with our community. A lot of people I speak to have a lot of issues around finances and complain about services not working properly, and we do our best to get those in place properly, but at the end of the day, if the resources are limited, then the services we can provide are limited. And there's some really tough decisions. One of the hardest ones, sounds like quite a small thing, was introducing charges for the country parks. That is, my heart was kind of upset about that, to be honest, because it's not really in my nature. But I can understand the need for that. I understand why we have to do it. And most people I've talked to get that message as well. So it's working in partnership with the community. We've heard from the government about inheriting difficult financial situations. Well, we inherited a waste fleet that was on its knees when we came into power last May. And the decision to purchase a new fleet and the complexity involved in that and the expense of that, actually the reason why that was a good decision to make, because we were paying £30,000 a month to repair the old fleet, and having a new fleet of vehicles which does the job and doesn't cost us 30 grand a month to repair is actually in the long term a sensible decision. So that this is not easy, this is complicated and difficult, and we've got a great team of officers who are making this very clear, and the understanding of how we're approaching this is very clear, and the collaborative working is really welcome. So I just wanted to emphasise that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. Any other colleague? Luella?
Yeah, just to add that thanks, Vince, the pressures on temporary housing continue and will keep continuing, but we are purchasing our own temporary accommodation, but that doesn't happen overnight. So we have to find the right properties suitable for temporary accommodation at the right price to make it cost effective for the council. This is happening, And when more accommodation is within our portfolio for us to house our own people in our own temporary accommodation, that overhead will reduce in the long run. That was all I just wanted to add.
No, thank you very much. That's an important practical example as to one of the ways we will be hopefully saving money but also improving services, particularly for those vulnerable individuals and households who need that service. Any other colleagues? Zoe, please, yes.
Just to say that discussions have already begun about releasing proprietary assets that we own that we don't necessarily need. And we've had a community group already come forward to say they want to buy a small piece of land to extend services for young people with their sailing club. It's a small thing at the moment, but that there is a discussion going on about what properties we don't need to keep and that can deliver revenue for us.
Thank you very much, Zoe. Any other colleague? If not, I'll sum up the debate before going to the recommendations. I think, Zoe, you're absolutely right. And there's a prime example. We inherited a budget that year on year had to have £4 million of disposals that was never met, not once. And so from that perspective, you know, we are trying to get on with it as quick as we can, but like so many things, you can put lots of things on the market for sale. If nobody wants to buy them, then you're stuck with an asset that perhaps you don't want. So then it is about looking at those partnership approaches. And I think there'll be a number of those, I suspect, as we move through that substantial list of properties and land, etc., which the council has responsibility for. And I think we'll see a vast array of options, from traditional sale to a cooperative approach. I'd hope to see some of that as a labour and cooperative administration, to, you know, assets of community value, which I know is something many people around this table feel passionate about. I think, Luella, you are absolutely right to highlight that example of spend to save. In opposition, we spoke about spend to save a lot. My predecessor as the Labour Group Finance spokes, Glyn Griffiths, many years ago, was speaking about spend to save. And the previous administration, in my view, could have done more and didn't. And I think we're picking that up as a pace. And your example, and there will be others, it is an example of where it will save taxpayers money, but those vulnerable residents will get a better service. That's got to be a good thing. Simon, you're right. My inbox is not full, but there's certainly been some correspondence on the country park charging. It's one of those issues which, of course, the decision was made several months ago, and we were really clear this wasn't a full year of income. The budget papers are accurate on that. Again, not always the case under the previous administration. That was their political decisions to put those things. But you're right. Over this year and next year in particular, there will be decisions which personally all 10 of the Cabinet, all 59 of the Council at different points, I suspect, will go, that's really hard. But the alternative is having 2 less social workers, or having somebody else less in another important part of the system. Those are the practical decisions. And I know that sounds a bit flippant almost in one sense, but that's, you know, there's only one general fund. We can only spend the money once. So it is right to say absolutely we'll spend money efficiently, but we will income generate as well. That's the right and appropriate thing to do when we're in the financial challenge that this report very clearly lays out. And Tracy, you're right to highlight the triangle of 4. Again, not a triangle, it's a square. Actually, so it shows how bad I was at the different bits and pieces. Maybe I should have had a better education. I didn't, it's fine. But genuinely, those issues around the challenges that all councils are facing, you know, the LGA is doing a great job, has done a great job, continues to do a great job in highlighting those, in part so individual councils don't have to stand alone. So that actually, for those of us who have got those upper tier authority challenges, the adults and children's care challenges, we absolutely can say united, strong, clear message to say the challenge is getting more difficult and the resources are not going as far as they need to. That's not a Medway problem. That's not a South East problem. that is a local government problem. And ultimately, it's an English problem because England deals with local government separate from Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland. So we will do what we can. We will be innovative. We will bring in new things. We will deliver good services. But ultimately, we are not alone in having medium-term financial outlooks like this. So thanks to colleagues for their contributions. Can I thank the finance team for their work on this report? Again, important work. And again, we're seeing greater levels of collaboration between finance and other bits of the council, recognising that this is all of our responsibility. So I'm grateful for that as well. With that backdrop and my need to learn the basic shapes of geometry, the recommendations are great. Thank you very much indeed. Next item, I think, Simon, is over to you for the small matter of democracy.
Thank you very much. This is all about the Werburgh and Chattenden Neighbourhood Plan. We've had a number of times when we've discussed this amongst ourselves as Cabinet, and we've reached that stage where it's just reaching its final sort of process in the plan production. Neighbourhood plans themselves, as colleagues are aware, are a sort of way of helping a local community really identify what their needs are and what they could be doing to develop their community and help it grow, as opposed to the larger scale local plans, which we're currently in the process of producing. And it's really for those communities which have got unique characters and special qualities that we want to preserve and enhance and look after, which define what those communities are like. So we've had an independent examination of the draft plan, and this is one of several plans that are ongoing or in conclusion now in Medway. We've got one for Arches and one for Cliff and Cliff Woods, and there's another one for High Halstow underway. So this is our third, I think the third one we're now doing for Medway. So a really popular and really valuable contribution to our planning process within Medway. The independent examination has taken place. The recommendations from the independent examination have been accepted, and we're now ready to take the plan to referendum, and that's what members are asked to approve tonight, that we go forward. So that's what we're looking for Cabinet to approve this evening. And I want to just add a huge thanks to the Neighbourhood Planning Group within and Chattenden, who've done such a great job to bring this forward. The Parish Council have worked really hard, and our own teams of officers have been working very closely with them over many, many months now to get this plan to the stage where it is. And some of the community are actually here this evening, and very welcome to see them as well. So as a council, we've supported and made sure that the process has gone very smoothly for the most part. And the plan is really based around the principles of sustainable development, those three pillars which I often refer to: the sustainable economy, the sustainable community, and the sustainable environment, coming together to make a community really work and function well. It will fit neatly within the local plan, which is currently out to public consultation as I speak. The consultation ends next week, so anyone who's not put their comments in, please get on and do so as you can. And the referendum will be within 6 weeks of any decision we make tonight if we decide to approve. And that's really what we're asking members to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Simon. Tracy.
Thank you. I was really pleased to read the plan. Such a lot of work had gone into it, and it was really clear that the community had been thinking about how to develop their own environment, make it sustainable for the future, and make it a place where people want to come and live. I was pleased to read the examiner's report. I thought that was really useful. It gave quite a lot of clarity and made sure that there weren't any conflicts with other planning regulations. So I thought that was really helpful. Good to read that there's support for this from St Werburgh and Chathenden Parish Council. And I think it's absolutely right that this should now be going to referendum so that we can have a wider view of what the residents think of this report.
Thank you very much. Adam, please.
Yes, it's linked with this, but I was very pleased to spend part of a day recently at Who for child-friendly Medway. And I'm really pleased that families and children came out in droves. And there were a lot of comments there, such as Medway Council providing something for us and who? You know, there has been a game change now, and you know, I'm really pleased that the Peninsula feels that they're being recognised by Medway Council, and obviously they're emboldened to go forward with their local plan. And I know that Simon Curry's got particular experience on neighbourhood plans, what with the Archers plan as well. So a lot of positives coming out of this report and linked to this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. I saw some of the pictures from the Who Day. Looked fantastic. I think they ran out of burgers. It was so popular. Thank goodness I didn't go. Anybody else before I go back to Simon? I think I'd say a couple of things before I go back to Simon to conclude the item. I was really pleased to come along to the parish council there last year, and I know residents take a keen interest in what is happening. So the fact that the parish council are supportive of this process is a good thing. And absolutely recognise that the referendum process, there may be a small additional cost to Medway Council, because I don't think that the 20,000 will probably cover it, but that's the right thing to do. And even in these difficult financial times, you can physically put a price on democracy, but you can't put a price on democracy. So whatever the cost with that, the additional small overspend, will find a way of making sure that is covered as appropriate. These are really important documents. They're all different. That's the whole nature of a local referendum of this nature. And we saw the ones that have already come through with the other neighbourhood plans, as was mentioned earlier on. The more of these that come forward is a good thing. I think it adds value to our local plan as that come forward. And as Simon rightfully says, if you haven't made your consultation submission yet, please do. You've still got time. I'm hoping to be at the event in Hempstead later this week, so I look forward to hearing from residents there. So yeah, absolutely, congratulations to all those who have made this happen. I want to recognise again the planning team here at Medway. They're quite busy at the moment. But I know that there's been good support for this coming through to get to this point tonight. And I look forward to this going forward. And as Simon said, by the nature of the law, the statutory position on this means that we will have a set period of time to make sure this happens and the referendum takes place. Simon, back to you.
Thanks very much, Vince, and thank you, colleagues, for your comments. I mean, I think there's not a great deal more to say apart from the fact that this really is quite a brilliant piece of work done by the community in partnership with the council, and it really does show what a unique and special place Who really is, and what can be done there going forward. It's got its own character, it's got its own special qualities, and we really want to celebrate those and recognise them. So I ask for colleagues' support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are the recommendations agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Let's move. I think that's the first time since last May there's been applause at Cabinet. You can come every time. You might not applaud every time, but you're very welcome every time. And genuinely, thanks for coming over, and hope the next few weeks go well. And I'm sure genuinely, certainly the Archers local team, if you haven't already spoken with them, they ran a really good campaign in the community to get that yes vote out. So I'm sure you'll be speaking with them. Let's move on to the next substantive item. Adam, over to you for the annual fostering report.
Thank you, Vincent. I'm very pleased to present the annual fostering report. And just before I go into that, just to say that Vincent and I attended the thank you event that was held this year at Bridgewood Manor. And also Vince, myself and other councillors supported the foster care fortnight that was held this year as well, with various stands in the Pentagon and Dockside Outlet are the ones that come to mind. So this annual fostering report can be found on pages 95 to 110, and then it goes on to page 214 with the actual published report. It provides a summary of the business and the opportunities and the operations of the Medway Fostering Service. And there's aims and objectives, which you can see there, what they're planning to do. Basically, the key priorities are to ensure all children in the care of Medway Council, whether the arrangement is short or long-term, are cared for in loving, secure and stable families. fostering team, and I'd like to thank Andrada for pulling together this report. It's comprised of four teams, and those are listed in 5.2.1, one of which is the recruitment and assessment team. And one of their objectives this year is to recruit a marketing officer, which will strengthen Medway's ability to deliver and strengthen our recruitment and retention strategy for new foster carers. There are gaps in resource provision, as there were last year, and more foster carers are particularly needed to care for adolescents, children with disabilities, sibling groups, and also parent and child placements, because there is provision for fostering for both parents and child as well. It's my duty also to feed back to you the comments of Children and Young People's Scrutiny, because this came before Children and Young People's Scrutiny on the 1st of August. And there were very searching but supportive questions and comments. First of all, they revolved around recruitment. Unfortunately, there's been a year-on-year decline in foster carers within Medway. So recruitment and retention remains a challenge, and this is both locally and nationally, I'm afraid. There are ongoing recruitment campaigns, including as part of the South East Hub, South East Recruitment Hub, and ongoing media recruitment in order to address workforce issues. And those workforce issues include like retirement, because some of our foster carers are close to the age of retirement, but also transfer to other local authorities, because we are surrounded by other local authorities that can sometimes pay more. And also there will be personal reasons as well. They also asked about independent fostering agencies and what's been behind certain foster carers leaving to go and work for independent fostering agencies. The officer told us that it was largely a personal decision, and it could be driven by the packages offered by local authorities, or the fact that independent fostering agencies, not local authorities, or those agencies being able to specialise in like specific areas. And the team has been responding to that by offering various means of support and specialised training. There were also questions about spare bedrooms, and one of the difficulties has been shown to be that not all the foster carers, all the potential fostering households have got a spare bedroom, and the officer acknowledged that there are issues to do with this, and in particular they're working with the planning department to ensure that Medway's plans for properties are mindful of the requirements of fostering regulations. I've mentioned that the recruitment and assessment team is recruiting a marketing officer, and it remains for me to also mention that Medway will be embedding the Mockingbird model, which will serve to create for more resilience amongst the foster caring service. So it's a bit like mainstream families can call upon aunts and uncles and grandparents, etc. Well, the same facility will be strengthened in future, so that foster carers need never fear that they're not as part of a group of fellow foster carers that they can call upon, for cover and support. So it remains for me, I will pass over to other Cabinet members that might want to ask questions, and then I'll move the recommendations for the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. Very detailed overview, very helpful. Thank you. Tracy, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Adam, for that. And thank you too to Amy Coombs, who wrote this report, no relation. There's such a lot in there. There are still huge challenges to fostering in Medway, but there were some really encouraging things that I read in there. First off, I'd like to mention the 3 successful funding bids, which have enabled our team to run 3 pilot projects, all designed to help make fostering and adoption more successful in Medway. So firstly, the wraparound support for likely adopters, so that's where foster children are placed in foster homes where they are likely to then adopt those children. So they're fostering and then are likely to go on to adopt. Secondly, the project to support siblings who are being placed. This can be quite challenging, particularly larger sibling groups. So this pilot project is designed to help support and make that more successful. And finally, developing the multidisciplinary approach, because very often the children and the families have very complex needs which need input from a variety of different professions. And so this pilot is enabling lots of input from these different professions to help make sure that these are successful. The second thing I just want to mention is it was so clear that the voice of the child is really listened to and really appreciated. So many different strands here, including the adoptables, which is the Young Persons Council, the Young Persons Reference Group, apprentices with adoption experience who give a really invaluable insight to people from their point of view, and also the peer connection scheme. So really pleased to see so much children's voice apparent in this report. So very well done to the team for putting this together. Despite the challenges that they face, we're still making great strides.
Thank you very much indeed, Tracy. Very, very helpful. Thank you. Any other colleague? Nina, please. Yes.
Thank you once again for this very helpful report. Just wanted to point out that actually the Medway fostering placements team do attend the fostering network meetings locally as well, and I'm aware of that, and I think that is good practice because as far as possible, when we can't find placements in-house, you know, the effort to place the children as close as possible to the local authority does make sense. So I just wanted to applaud the team members who do take part in those meetings and also emphasize on the right matches, because matching at the point of placement is ever so crucial in terms of stability as well as, you know, making sure that the children's needs are met. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much indeed, Nina. Can't see any other colleagues. So just before I come back to you, Adam, I think this is a challenging area. Again, we're not unique in Medway. The kind of recruitment and retention is a challenge, certainly post-COVID. There's been, across the country, people have basically stepped out. Life has changed for lots of people over those 2 years, so they've taken those choices. So recruiting to stand still is difficult enough. I do think we have a great team, both within the council but within the community, who are doing this for us. And people, I've heard it firsthand, people are proactively choosing to foster through the council because they trust the council. Not that they don't trust independent providers, but they absolutely want to be with us. So I'm really proud of that because people don't have to have that view. They've chosen that view. And again, I've heard that firsthand. So that's really powerful. So I'd echo Nina's comments around thanking the team who are out there day in, day out. Often almost under the radar service, but it's opportunities like the annual report where, and those others you mentioned in your opening remarks, Adam, where again we as a council can say, look, thank you both to the staff who are helping facilitate this service, but those individuals and families who are fostering across Medway. Adam, back to you.
I'd like to, first of all, thank other members of the Cabinet for their supportive comments and observations. I'd like to move that we note the comments of the Children and Young People's Scrutiny Committee on the 1st of August, and I'm also asking Cabinet to note the Fostering Service Annual Report for 2023 to 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Those recommendations agreed? Agreed, thank you. Let's move on to the Adoption Partnership South East Annual Report. Adam, back to you.
Thank you very much. So we are part of the Regional Adoption Agency, which includes ourselves, Kent and Bexley. And this is also being to Children and Young People's Scrutiny. I'll talk about that in a moment. And that was on the 1st of August at the same meeting. So basically, just to say, first of all, that the annual report provides information that will assist elected members in respect of their responsibilities as corporate parents for looked after children. And of course, those looked after children include adopted children as well. The agency, the South East Agency, of which we're a part of, is committed to fulfil the requirements of the Adoption and Children's Act of 2002 and the more recent legislation, the Children and Family Act of 2014. And this is by ensuring provision of high-quality adoption service which guarantees the best possible standards of care, safety and protection for children and young people. Also the local authorities in the partnership, and those who need adoptive placements. Also to ensure that all those whose lives have been affected by adoption are helped in order to be able to identify and receive appropriate services. And another important aim there is to work in partnership with adoptive families and multidisciplinary professionals, ensuring the service is based on meeting statutory requirements, good practice and innovation within the principles of value for money for the service. Whilst we're talking about value for money, I understand that there is some money coming back, potentially 66,000 in terms of an underspend, but obviously that's going to be looked into as to whether that will be rolled forward into next year's budget or to come back to this council. So I mentioned that, that there were questions and comments which came from scrutiny, and those revolved around wait times, partnership working, wraparound support, because amongst the wraparound supports we have 40 peer mentors for our adoptive families, etc. Yes, and in terms of the wait times, just to give you some illustration as to how that can vary, there are two potentially children going forward for adoption who've got extremely complex needs, and these do include life-limiting needs. And so that you can understand, it means that it will take longer for those particular children to be placed into adoption. And the strength of partnership working through this agency can be seen in our judgments, which showed that children matter in Medway from the recent last year ILACS report, which showed an improvement in our adoption service, frankly, from the previous time when that was there was the ILACS visit back in 2019, and that largely comes from the partnership working with the neighbouring authorities, Kent and Bexley. So we have benefited from that partnership arrangement, and we have got by, and what's been recognised by ILACS is that we've got a good adoption service. So I'll come back in a moment, but leave it for other members with their comments and questions on the adoption report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. Any colleague? I think the only thing I would say, it was good to see Alex mentioned Medway Pride earlier on, and actually that was the first place I've seen in Medway the new partnership with branding at a Medway event. So it was great to see that there, great to see them reaching out to all parts of our community to see who would want to step up to be adopters. So I think being part of that bigger collective sometimes is a helpful thing, and I think we're seeing that in its both the wider southeast, but also obviously our nearby neighbours who we work with closely here as well. Adam, back to you.
Thank you, Vince. So I'd like to move that the Cabinet notes the comments made by Children and Young People's Overview and Scrutiny on the 1st of August, and secondly, to note the annual adoption report set out in Appendix 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. Are those recommendations agreed? Thank you very much. That then moves us to the final substantive item. I'm presuming no one's given me indication they're wanting to move into closed session, so I'm presuming that won't be happening. Let me know now if you are planning to do that. No? Good. Excellent. Thank you. And you'll note that Teresa's not here today, so I'll be moving this on her behalf. This is a really important contract. In the scale of the Medway Council budget, not huge, but important money. And importantly, money which is being spent collectively because it's the Better Care Fund. And this is about the collective approach. We had today, I took over today, I should probably say that, as the new chair for the next 2 years of the Integrated Care Partnership. So Medway is although we are proud of Medway and proud to be Medway, we're always about partnership working. And whether that's through statutory things like BCF or indeed the Integrated Care Partnership, or in other ways, as we've spoken about tonight, we'll always be ready for those partnership approaches. So this commissioning, which is at Gateway 3, it is part absolutely of the longer term Care for Medway approach and our journey on that. You know, it's been clear since day one of this administration, but as Luella made the point earlier on, things sometimes take time to get into place. We can't do things overnight. This is another example of better outcomes for individuals, but better value for taxpayers as well. And I think really importantly, and it's within the document, a full procurement process. So that means it's been open to all to participate, you know, making sure that, you know, anybody who feels that they could fulfill this for us could step forward. And as is in the confidential papers, obviously we've got a recommendation which we will agree later tonight. But very, very good that we've had that process. It's important to recognise that the assessment beds are impactful. They were introduced last year during the local authority using that emergency care grant, which was short term. But again, this is about looking at what works well. We've had the Hunger Games approach to funding bids and pots of money. I think this authority looks at those things and where we think they'll be effective moving forward. And we've spoken in this place about things like the Household Support Fund and the Rough Sleeper Initiative. So there are others where we've looked at where we've got that short-term boost of cash and what can be the long-term positive impacts. And this is another example of that. So we could have stopped delivering this service. That was an option available to us. But I think we've taken the right approach. It would have negatively impacted on discharge from hospital, which in effect would then have a negative impact on physical and cognitive deconditioning. So we're doing the right thing. So I'm very pleased to support this and move this in Teresa's absence and look to agree the recommendations as laid out. Any other colleague? I'll take Luella, then Nina.
Thank you, Vince. I support this. I think the need is there, and as you say, it's almost like speculating to accumulate, because eventually the outcome will be that we'll have less people fit to be discharged from hospital without anywhere to go. This helps that. All of this is to help alleviate the pressures that we've got in other areas of adult social care. So it's a good thing. I totally support it.
Thank you very much, Luella. Nina, please.
Likewise, I'm more than happy to support this. I just have a question with regards to whether there will be any quarterly reviews, or how is it going to be evaluated as to whether we're getting value for money with regards to what we are anticipating. And, you know, it would be helpful for us to have a little bit information about the review process, please. Thanks.
Knowing Teresa as I do, she has, you know, regular one-to-ones both with Jackie and Leanne, and I know not just on this but on lots of different aspects those will be raised. And of course it is a relatively short-term tender actually in the grand scheme of local government, so there will be a need to be reviewing it as we go along to see if we continue it into the future or if it forms part of that wider Care for Medway programme. Again, that's something obviously we'll look at as we go forward, but really important to say, look, this is still relatively new, so it's right to be reviewing these things as we go along. So thank you very much for that. I can't see anybody else, so I will move the recommendations as laid out in the agenda. Are those agreed? Thank you very much. That closes tonight's meeting. Thank you very much.